Good morning. Welcome to Viewpoint, your program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. Well, we certainly have a personality. We're going to have some perspectives this morning on education. Doctor, we always try to start the Viewpoint program with a kudo or maybe one or two about something going on in the community, something important. Last night I went to something very important for, particularly for those who are veterans of all wars for that matter. They had a rededication of the Purple Heart ceremony. We have a nice little veterans park here on Union Street, and Joe Shaler and his wife Melanie and a bunch of gentlemen, many of them from the Marine Corps League, have been working and rehabbing that and reworking it and cleaning up the stones and taking everything up and washing the stones and putting them back. A lot of man hours and lady hours too. And we have a young Eagle Scout candidate who's been working on that as his project. So in any event, last night the Military Order of the Purple Heart, which originally started in, but not in that name, in George Washington's time, American Revolutionary time, and it's evolved now down through the years to be, as you know, we all know, an award for having been injured in military service. And they had a ceremony in Springfield the other afternoon at Oak Ridge Cemetery, which was very nice. And then we had one locally here. And in particular, I want to mention the Bolton family, mother, daughter, and son. The mother and the daughter sang the Star Spangled Banner, and they just did a very, very nice job of that. Very nice. A cappella, of course. We didn't have any orchestra sitting there with it.
Well, it'd be hard to plug in on.
And sister and brother played taps at the end, and it was quite moving. And so kudos to that family in particular for what they added to the evening. And kudos to all the folks who worked so hard on that Veterans Parkway there on the corner of Union and Pekin Street. So, let's get right down to business. We have a very important guest with us this morning, Mrs. Busby, and if you'd be kind enough to make the intro, we'll move right along.
Well, this is going to be a very interesting program. This man has been there and done that.
Yes.
All the way from...
And is still doing that.
Yes, he is. And he's from New Jersey. And a very natty dresser, I dare say.
Oh, thank you.
Well, let's don't hold it against him. He comes from New Jersey. There's some nice people out there. I can't think of any right now.
You don't know them personally.
No.
But he just assumes they're lovely, and I'm sure they are.
Well, he knows one.
Yes, he does now.
That's right.
He does now. Hamin Shabazz is the new vice president at Lincoln College, and there were several articles written about you, of course, that you'd be coming here. So we got some background from that, and after spending a number of years in grade school and so forth, you decided that wasn't your thing.
Right.
And you just dropped out. But I suppose you're the world's most successful high school dropout.
Well, one of them. I'm quite sure that there's many that still go unheard of, but
it just took a lot of intestinal fortitude for you to grab life by the horns.
Pull the mic a little closer, Doctor, if you. Thank you very much.
Yes, and a lot of determination.
Oh gosh, yes. And you finished your education and became a policeman.
Yes.
Well, that's a little different occupation today than it was when Bill and I were young.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I remember my dad was a volunteer fireman, so of course he spent a lot of time at the fire and police station. Mm-hmm. Well, not a lot of time, but time. And we as kids knew the policemen. And oh gosh, they were just really neat people, you know, and your mom always told you that they were there just to help you.
Yes.
In case you get lost or something, you know. But that picture has changed dramatically.
Yes, it has. It has.
Would you like to be a policeman in Chicago?
I could still do that occupation if I had to, but it doesn't fit with my personality. That's one of the things I found out when I was a law enforcement officer.
How long were you in law enforcement?
10 years.
That's a good long
Yeah.
while. Yeah, and then you decided you wanted to be an educator.
Yes, but that's quite a long story.
Well, start it now.
Well, I would have to go back to something that you said earlier, but first let me just say I appreciate the invitation, and on behalf of our president at Lincoln College, Dr. David Gerlach, which is a very, very visionary president.
Is that?
I've been in academia for about 12 going on 13 years, and I've had the opportunity to meet about 3 or 4 presidents, and I could say that Dr. Gerlach is one of the most visionary persons that I have met in terms of education. He genuinely loves the students there, and our personalities just click. So, as the chief academic officer for Lincoln College, it's important that the relationship between the president and the chief academic officer is one. He's an out-of-the-box thinker, so yes,
sure.
He is, and so I just want to thank him and for allowing me the opportunity to be able to come here and speak with you and share some of your thoughts. So, by going back to the my high school dilemma, it wasn't. It was a decision. It was a decision that I made, but it wasn't a decision that I freely made. Mm-hmm. So, in other words, I'm a product. I come from a family of 10 children. So my mom had 5 girls and 5 boys. Cool. Single parent home. Dad, I don't know who my father is today. Mm-hmm. No man in the house. I had 2 older brothers, but the family was kind of split. In other words, we were 10 children, but we were 10 children that were allowed to do their own thing. Because my mom, she had to, and God bless her soul, I lost her last November. And she was 96 years old. She lived to be 96 years old, yes. And she had to work 12, 13, 14 hours a day, so she had really no time.
Just keep it together.
To tend to the children, to guide the children, and we were what you would call today latchkey children. So your parents go away to work and nobody's at home to see you home at work. So we kind of did our own thing.
Sure.
And so she had just grade school education. I mean, she didn't go any further than I believe 8th grade if she went that far. She couldn't participate in our educational process at all. And so she was working in this clothing factory as a presser. And she pressed clothes like 12, 14 hours a day.
Yeah.
I mean, I've went to work with her a couple of times after I dropped out of school to see how I may be thinking back, I think it might have been something for her to show me what would happen to me if I didn't do something else other than what she did, which was drop out of school and continue to work.
Well, that was a real lesson for you.
Yeah,
it
was a real lesson, and some of the things that she couldn't afford, things that that children want in going to school, especially now. I mean, peer pressure is a big thing now that society is starting to recognize in grade school, high school, and even college. And so some of the peer pressure that I faced, I was only about, I think I was 4 feet 11. And I'm a small guy now, right? So I only weighed about 70 pounds at that particular time. 4 feet 11. I'm first year high school, and my mother, for our clothing, she shopped at Salvation Army. So we didn't go to any stores. No. We picked shoes that if they were too tight, we had to wear them. If they were too big, we had to wear them. And when they wore out, what she would do is cut out a piece of cardboard, put them in the bottom of the hole, and we would wear the shoes. So this is how I was dressing going to high school. And I was picked on a lot.
Of course.
So I was like bullied. And that was one of the things that drove me out of high school. I was bullied, and I was faced with so much pressure and had no way to deal with it. My family couldn't help me deal with it. I had no friends. I was alienated in high school. And so the only thing that I could think of was to leave. And so I left.
Who or what made you start down this path? Now, you're very gregarious.
Yes, I am. Now.
You're obviously smart.
Very smart.
You're obviously not 4'11" anymore.
No, I'm about almost close to 6 feet now.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yes.
And, you're not overweight, though.
No, I'm still small.
You're
Fortunately.
Yes, yes.
That's fact.
Yes. Who was it that you met, or what was it that you saw, do you suppose? Or was it so complex?
Well, it was after I became a law enforcement officer. And that's why I think it's so important for the students that we are seeing in higher education now to expose them to different environments other than what they are coming from. And that's what kind of changed me and shaped me and pushed me into the direction where I could pursue something that was me, something that was of my character, something that would fit my personality. And that's one of the things that I tell students today. The environment that they are in has to be an environment that is conducive to growth, where you can grow. And so when I became a law enforcement officer, prior to becoming a law enforcement officer, I had to get my GED.
Oh, good.
Yeah. During my tenure in law enforcement, there was this. I guess it was a government organization or a government push, civil service. Remember civil service? And so law enforcement agencies during my time were predominantly white and male, especially in the inner cities. So even policing in the majority African American communities or majority Hispanic communities, law enforcement agencies were predominantly white and male. So this civil service commission made a push to recruit more minority applicants. And so I was between jobs at the time, and I seen this big announcement recruiting for law enforcement officers in Camden, New Jersey. And so in order for me to apply to that position, I had to have a high school diploma or GED.
And that was your motivation to get your GED?
That was my motivation to get the GED. But I failed it like 5 or 6 times. Because I had no formal training, no background, no educational background, nobody to coach me, nobody to tell me anything.
But there's a point to be made here. You failed it 6 times, but then you kept going.
Yes.
You see, there's a drive there somewhere along the line.
Yes.
You know, Dr. Shabazz, to me, there's a significance in the fact that here's a gentleman who went from GED to PhD, and by his own drive and determination, ended up here as vice president of academics at Lincoln
Yeah.
College.
Lincoln University.
Lincoln University. Yes, so you see, he's correcting me now because that's what we're headed. That's what we're headed for.
Yes, sir.
But I think there's a very significance to that. With your very, very, really humble beginnings, very difficult beginnings, by your own drive and by your own determination, you're here now with a doctor of philosophy in education, I presume, and here you are at Abraham Lincoln College.
Yes.
I think he would have smiled very.
He would have
benignly
smiled.
at that.
He would have
would've.
smiled.
In what grade were you when you said adios?
I was the first month of ninth grade.
Oh, Lordy.
Yeah, the first month of
bailed
ninth
out.
grade.
Boy.
And what kind of jobs did you get, doctor?
Well, actually, I got a couple of jobs. One job I got was at a cardboard factory, and didn't stay there long. So my two fingers right here,
Yeah.
I cut them off.
Oh.
You know, I was working a machine where the machine would cut out the cutouts where you could fold the cardboard. You know how
Yes.
you fold a cardboard box? Well, there's a machine cutter that cuts that indentation out, and my fingers slipped under there, and
Bang.
bang, that was it. So
Ouch.
after that job, I wound up getting a job at a factory. I still remember this factory to this day. It's called Ashland Chemicals.
That's still around, isn't
I
it?
think it's still around. I think it's still around, and it was in Newark, New Jersey. It paid very, very, very well. I mean, it paid so well that I think that if I had not gotten laid off from that job, I wouldn't be sitting in this chair talking to you today.
Is that right?
Yeah, I had to get laid off in order to do something else.
Well, that was
because
providential, as it
the
turned
pay
out.
was so good. I mean, I was able to do a lot. I was able to, dress myself, take care of myself, and to help my family out. But I got laid off, and that's what pushed me to take the civil service exam for a police officer in Camden.
So you're here to testify that being laid off can be a good thing.
Yeah, it could be a good thing. Yeah,
Yes.
it could be a good thing.
Oh, my goodness. And then you decided that you'd get into education.
Yeah, and that was the process too. And
That's kind of a funny decision for
Yeah, it
you
is.
to have made.
Well, I will tell you, one thing that I love about my mother, I love the fact that she wasn't able to give me a lot, as children ask for today. Children want the latest technology, the best clothes, and
Yeah.
the best home, and all of that. So she wasn't able to give me that. But what she was able to give me was a good moral base. And she made my heart what it is today. And that conflicted with the role that I was put in when I went after this law enforcement job. So Camden, New Jersey, I don't know if you know anything about New Jersey, but Camden, New Jersey, during my time, had a population of about 90,000 people. And the
A little
majority...
bigger than Lincoln.
Yeah, a little
wasn't
bigger
it?
than Lincoln. And the majority of those people were African American, so they were just like me. As a law enforcement officer, what we have a tendency to see is the worst of the worst. We very rarely encounter just good people. You just don't see that. I mean, because the only time that most people summon a law enforcement officer is when they need help.
Yeah.
And when they need help, it's usually something bad. Mm-hmm. So what I was encountering was bad. And you mentioned earlier during our interview here about the era that you grew up in with policing and the relationship that you had with police officers. Well, policing in the United States went through several eras. So we call them the 4 policing eras. And you have the crime control, you have professionalism, you have community policing. And so the era that I was in, and the last one was crime control, the era that I was in was a crime control model. And a crime control model just simply says, if a person breaks the law you arrest them. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You don't counsel them. And now our police officers today have to be trained in many subject areas. For example, how to deal with canines, how to deal with mentally ill patients, how to deal with somebody that's intoxicated. Well, all of that wasn't occurring when I was a police officer. And usually when people get in trouble, they are making decisions. They are making poor decisions. And decisions are made based off a person's knowledge base. So if you have poor knowledge, you're going to make poor decisions.
Sure.
And so this is what I was encountering during my era of policing. But my role, I couldn't correct them. I couldn't educate them. Well, that didn't sit well with me. You know, and so I had to find something. I had to find an occupation. I had to find a way how I could quench the thirst that I developed in that law enforcement career. How could I teach people? How could I teach people? How could I give people knowledge? And so in that career, I encountered judges, I encountered lawyers. All of them had education. All of them had a college education.
There was that flag out there.
And that was another flag for me. So I said, well, what do I have to do to educate people? What would I have to do? So I said I had to go to college. And so while I was in this full-time job, law enforcement officer, I was a non-traditional student, what we call non-traditional students, where you have to work full-time and you have to go to school full-time. And so I went to college.
We have a tradition up here in this station, Doctor, and it's called honoring our sponsors. And so it'd be crime control if we don't take
Yes.
and honor our
Yes.
sponsors. Go ahead, Mr. Ash. Well, we're right back live in the studios here at WLCN. Our guest, Mrs. Busby and the old fella, is Dr. Hamin Shabazz, Vice President of Education at Lincoln College. New kid on the block, so to speak. He's far from a kid. He's in advanced in age, just beyond. He doesn't want us to ask his age.
Advanced in age. Advanced. You just told my age. Advanced in age. No, I'm a young man.
Yes, he is.
29 and counting.
29 and counting.
As you've heard, I'm sure almost ad nausea, while your feet are big, you have big shoes to fill. Dr. Fansker did a remarkable job for us here, and that was another time into college. Now we're moving forward. Dr. Shabazz comes to us with considerable background. Comes from an unusual background. A gentleman who rose from a kid who got a GED when he was an adult to get a job, and now is a PhD involved in higher education. And we're happy to have you here, sir.
Thank you.
Your plate is full. How do you see things as you have had a few weeks to kind of size things up and see where you are? You say, Lordy, what have I done here?
Well, no, actually, I'm glad to be here, and
We're
I
glad to have
can't.
you.
Everybody that I've met in the community so far has given me a warm hug and warm welcome. I really feel comfortable being here. I can't wait to meet the students when they arrive on
That'd be
the
pretty quick.
20th. Yeah, pretty quick. So it's good to be here, and I really like the environment.
Good. Going to be a good fit. It's really way too early to ask a question like this, but at the first blush, have you seen anything glaring that you think you'd like to address your attributes to, your ability?
Oh yes. There's a number of things that we're pushing. As I mentioned before, Dr. Gerlach is a visionary. He's out of the box thinker. He's not. He doesn't think, in the confines of a box. So there's several initiatives that we are trying to put forth. One is that we are moving Lincoln College back to its original roots as Lincoln University. So we're trying to put 3 new programs on Lincoln College's books for 2019. One is a Bachelor of Law. I'm very excited about that program.
You would be.
Yes. only the University of Arizona is the only other school in the nation that has this program.
Really?
And yes, it's the only other nation that has the only other school in the nation that has a program like this. It is a very popular program at that school, and I think it will be very, very popular here as well. So we would be the second school in the nation to offer that program, and that's a Bachelor of Law. There are 2 other programs that we're working on, which are master degrees. Hopefully, by 2019, we'll be able to have them on Lincoln College's books. One is a master's in criminal justice, which will have 3 concentrations. One, administration of justice. The other one, police administration, correctional administration, and then the third concentration will be domestic security or homeland security, which is synonymous. Those terms are synonymous. And then a master's in business administration with 3 concentrations, one in organizational leadership, the other one financial accounting, and the other one marketing. So, and also another initiative that we're taking on is to revitalize the Global Studies program. Now, one of the things I learned in my in my path to get to where I am today is that the environment is very important in terms of learning. Your environment, what soil you are placed in. And so one of the things that I think that we could do, and I'm also reaching out to the community and asking the community for help, is to take these students, take them to other countries, show them how other students in other countries value the United States and value the education that they receive in other countries. And I have taken over 700 children or 700 students to 3 countries, Spain, India, Africa, and it has dramatically changed their lives. So I think that program will expose our students to a different work ethic, and I think that's what it's about. It will also focus them on the importance of education, because everything we get by way of education, nobody can say, regardless of whether or not it's formal or informal, everything that we get, everything that we do comes by way of education. And so I think that this population of students need that type of exposure, because one of the things that I find, or I have found during my years in education, is that we do not value education as high as other countries do. In other countries, education is the number one important thing. If we could educate society, and we've talked about prior to the start of this show some issues where I mentioned that all we had to do was educate the people. So those are some of the initiatives that we are working on, and I would continue, as I know that Dr. Garlock is doing, is to ask for the continued support of all of Lincoln College donors and the community. I'm also looking to get Lincoln College intimately involved in the community. I met with City Council, I met with the mayor, I met with the police chiefs. I'm planning on meeting with the wardens of your 2 correctional institutions here to let them know that Lincoln College is here and we want to establish a mutually beneficial relationship between us both. So it's not only what you can do for Lincoln College, but what can Lincoln College do for you
and our community. Can you give me a thumbnail version of the difference between being designated Lincoln College or being designated Lincoln University? Is there somewhere a paper that says if you're calling yourself a college, you have to do this? If you're calling yourself a university, you have to do that?
Well, actually, the terms are interchangeable. But let me qualify that. Lincoln College was chartered as Lincoln University. And when it was first chartered, it was offering bachelor degrees and master degrees. Now, some of our colleges, and probably most of them, like our community college, only offer 2-year degrees, like the associate's degree. So somewhere in the history, Lincoln College started offering associate degrees, I believe, to compete with some other colleges in the area, and shied away from offering the master's degree, but the charter never changed. So our universities, most of our universities you will find, offer the bachelor degrees, the master degrees, and the PhDs. And most of our colleges offer the associate degrees or the certificates. And so you see how Lincoln College they moved in a community college direction and a community college focus, because they started offering the associate degrees and the certificates.
You know, I'm sitting here thinking 70 plus years ago, the few students that I was with at Lincoln College couldn't begin to imagine the scope of what you're laying out for us today as far as our future at Lincoln College is concerned. When I went there, we had 3 buildings, one of which burned down, unfortunately. That was the administration building at that time, and U-Hall, and Link Square, which was a gymnasium, which was nothing but a stucco building that had doors opening out into a shale driveway. That was the 3 buildings at Lincoln College. Nobody on campus at that time had not a clue as to what, here we are in 2018, what we have become, and more importantly, what we're about to become.
That's right. I'm looking to get Lincoln University, or Lincoln College, nationally and internationally known.
That's a lofty goal, sir. So you hit.
Well, it's easy for me.
Yes.
Because you've had other goals that you've had to set.
You walked that walk.
Walked that walk before.
Which makes it easier to talk the talk.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, you have an immediate goal, Dr. Shabazz, something that you have in your mind that you'd like to see accomplished pretty quickly. Do you have something on mind like that?
Yes, the immediate goal is those 3 degrees that I mentioned earlier. That's the first thing. That's what we're working on currently, and I'm pushing the faculty and the committees that have to be involved to make sure that we meet the deadlines, because we do have tight deadlines that we're working with to get those degrees on the books for 2019. So that's my first priority.
We have a pretty diverse student body here. Some come from academics, and some come from practically no academics at all.
Right.
So we have some kids that come on campus that are going to struggle a little.
Yes.
And it's your job in your office to track the academic proceedings. And how do we go about calling in Johnny Apple there and say, we've got to have, how are you going to get this turned around, son?
Well, I will tell you that one of the things that I have been doing, we have what we call SOAR events, where students that are interested in coming to Lincoln College come to these events with their parents. And one of the things that I talk about with the students is that there has to be a partnership. They have to be involved in they have to participate in their education. A lot of students just come to a school just to be educated and not to participate in the educational process. That's one thing. I also talk to the parents, because I want the parents to participate in that educational process. So one of the things that I've done since I've been here is that I'm establishing what I call drop boxes around campus. So if the students have any problems, they'll have a link directly to my office. I want to be involved in that educational process. I'm also creating a parent porthole on Lincoln College's website, on my webpage, where the parents could communicate with the school, because a lot of the times parents don't really communicate with the school. Now, this is getting around the FERPA issues, but parents don't typically communicate with the school until a child is in trouble.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to have a door or something that they could walk into where they're speaking to somebody, higher up in the administration and deal with some of the issues, because generally when a child decides to leave college, like I left high school, they generally communicate that to their parent. And if there's no communication between the parent and the school, and the parent is only operating off of the information that the child may be giving them, or the misinformation that the child may be giving them, the exit would be based on the information that the child is giving them. So I'm establishing those working relationships with the parents as well. We have first year seminar where we have embedded tutors in there to counsel students that don't have the academic scores in different subject area, like their writing scores might be low, their reading scores might be low, their math scores might be low. So we have embedded tutors in those first year seminar classes, like the developmental reading or the developmental math classes, to coach them along. We have what we call SOAR leaders. We have peer mentors. So we have a lot of different initiatives that will help nurture and encourage those students to be successful in college.
Not all schools, not all colleges have that approach.
Yes.
A kid goes to the University of Illinois, which is a fine school. He better make it or he's out, because we have a hands-on help program with our students here.
Yes, and I attribute that to the president, Dr. Gerlach. He loves his students there at Lincoln College.
He shows that.
He shows that. Yes, he does. He loves his students, and that is why we have all of what I just mentioned to you. It's because of his vision and his love and his passion. I say today, a lot of our educators have lost the passion to educate. They have lost the passion to educate. And as a student, students can pick up on that. They are very, very receptive. And if you don't love what you do, then how could we expect them to love what you do? I mean, it's just like water rolling off the back of a duck. So that's not our president. So everything that you see, everything that you hear about that's going on with Lincoln College / Lincoln University is from the vision of Dr. Gerlach.
Now, that is filtered down, too. And you'll find this out, Doctor, the longer you've been on campus. We have what I call it. Of course, I bleed purple over there. I understand that. So I wax a little eloquent when I get up, or try to be eloquent when I talk about Lincoln College, because it does such a great job and has down through the years. But now it's getting fine-tuned more and more and more. You'll find that Dr. Gerlach's attitude about students filters clear down to our culinary people who serve our food to our kids, to our physical plant maintenance staff. Everybody, I call it a Lincoln College family.
Yes.
And these people are all, it seems to me like they're all looking for the same goal. Do the best they know how to do it for the kids.
Yes.
And
that's important.
It really doesn't get any better than that if you have an entire college family that's oriented towards making sure our kids do well.
Yes, and that's very important.
There's another group of people that have to have something to do with this, and that would be the parents.
Yes.
If a kid gets to college and needs remedial reading or remedial math, that kind of says to me that the folks weren't really involved for those 12 years prior to that.
They were like my mother. My mother, she had 10 kids. She had to work. No man in the house. She had to feed 10 kids. So she's working all day. She can't contribute, or she couldn't contribute to the education of her family with limited education herself. So the majority of these kids are coming from families like that. first generation college students. That means that nobody in their family had any college education. So we don't know how much education that they've had. Low income, which means that the families that they're coming from are operating off a limited income. So how much could they contribute? And that's why I love so much about this president and what he's doing for the kids that's coming to this college, because they don't have that. So the parent can't give them that if they don't have it. They can't give them an education. They can't help them out with school. How are they going to? My mother, she couldn't help me out with anything. She could barely read herself. She could barely write herself.
Hanging on the edge, really.
Hanging on the edge, just trying to survive with a minimum wage job that she had to work at 12, 14 hours a day to have a decent income
So she
to
could
bring
feed
home,
you.
so she could feed me.
And that depends on how you define
So those
decent.
parents
Yeah.
can't help. They can't contribute. And that's why it's so important for the school to be able to be that second parent, so to speak.
That's why you're so important, because obviously my outlook is skewed. Not that I come from people who had a college education, because it wasn't very common back then.
Right.
But
Because you just didn't know. That's all.
I was at the school every time they opened the doors, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, knowing the student's background, because we know the student's background, we see their test scores, so we know that they're coming from limited income, single parent homes. We know that. But if you were to see a student on the street, unless a student had an intimate conversation with you where they shared that knowledge with you, you wouldn't know. The only thing that you would see is the student. So you wouldn't know their educational background. But again, these children are coming in with limited education, limited funds, and so they just don't know. The parents can't help. Now what the parents can do is encourage them to continue on, and that's one of the reasons for my parent porthole, because they may need encouragement, like Johnny, you need to get to school. Remember, your education is the most important thing. You're at the school for a reason, and that school should be the most important thing to you in your life. You have nothing else to do but get that college education, because that college education opens the doors to many things, and that's what happened with me. It opened the door a lot for me. So they just don't know.
But the difference in Hamin Shabazz was that you saw the need and had the perseverance to pursue.
Yes.
I think perseverance is a big word
Yes.
here.
But I went through the school.
Not right now.
But I went through the school of hard knocks, though. It wasn't
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, it wasn't, all of a sudden the light turned on and this is where I need to go. No, I tried this, that didn't work. I tried this, that didn't work. I tried this, that didn't work. And I got
But you hung in there.
punched all in my face, so to speak, trying to
I'm
go
sure
different
that's right.
ways, to satisfy a desire. I had no goals in the beginning, so I tell students that it's very, very important to start goals. I didn't know what I had to sacrifice to get to where I am, so I tell the students about sacrificing. So in other words, if you have a goal, you have to determine what it takes to get you to that, to reach that goal. How much are you willing to sacrifice? And if you're not willing to sacrifice what it takes to get you to that goal, then you need to find a different goal, right? So nobody told me that. I went through the school of hard knocks, and that's how I found out. So that's the message that I give to all of the students that come in front of me.
Dr. Hamin
That I meet.
Shabazz, we always try to close Viewpoint with a quote. The quotes I found were rather wordy and also verbose, as they say. And they were too, and I found one that was too trite. And when you think in terms of what Doctor just closed with, the determination it's over. So at the risk of soiling the whole program, I'm going to bypass my comment because it was too trite. So, thank you very much, Dr. Hamin
Thank
Shabazz,
you.
for being with us. Talking about Lincoln College, Lincoln University to be had very soon. Thank you
you.
very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.